Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the In Off the Post podcast. Coming up on today's show, Coleman leaves Wales for Sunderland, who will win the 2018 World Cup, and we've got an exclusive interview with Stuart Fleetwood, the former Merthyr striker, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the situation that's going on there. I'm your host, Daniel Bevan. I'm here with Ross Dawson.
Hello.
And Liam Thomas.
What's up?
And just a quick bit of context before we get started. We've had a few technical difficulties today, so we're recording from a makeshift studio in my living room, so I hope you can bear with us for that. And also a little bit of self-promotion. Earlier today we did an interview with former England cricketer Graham Fowler. That should be up on Friday, but here's a little snippet of that interview. Obviously, we know that you talk a lot about mental health, and I've just got some notes down here that you said in 2007 it was the best time of your life. You had an amazing job, a great family, but in early 2008 is when your wife Sarah approached you and said that you needed to go to the doctors. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
What actually happened, because I was working at the university, Durham University at the time, and I ran a cricket centre of excellence. In fact, I set them up, and then the ECB set up 5 more. And I've been running that for about 10 years now. I was happily going along, as I said, in a great situation in my life. And then we had the Christmas holidays, and at university you get from like second week in December until like the second week in January off, so it's quite a lengthy stretch. And it was probably the first week in January when Sarah just said, you need to go to the doctors. And I said, what for? She said, you're depressed.
Thank you very much to Graham for doing that interview with us, and we wish him all the best. But, so we kick off with the results and the reaction from the Premier League with Ross.
Yeah, football back again after another international break. Back with a bang. Super Saturday, as they say. Well, 8 of the games were Saturdays, so, you know. We'll start off, Crystal Palace 2, Everton 2, a draw that neither side wanted to see. Liverpool 3, Southampton 0, and another impressive home win for Liverpool. Mo Salah now becoming the top goal scorer in the league.
That came out of nowhere, didn't it?
I know, with 9. Burnley 2, Swansea 0. Good result for Burnley. They keep on their run of form. Leicester 0, Man City 2.
Probably the goal of the season so far with Kevin De Bruyne as well.
Yeah, it was great. It was great play from De Bruyne to send Sané down the wing initially. Great cut back from Sané and a wonderful finish from.
But
De
a
Bruyne.
goal line clearance from David Silva as well.
Really?
Just beforehand, yeah, and there was a counter attack.
Oh, nice.
It was brilliant.
West Brom 0, Chelsea 4, which is an impressive feat for Chelsea. Ultimately saw the demise of Tony Pulis. Yeah,
we'll talk a little bit about that later in our next topic.
But the first main discussion of the episode: Man United 4, Newcastle 1.
Mm-hmm.
Some notable absentees, but some notable returns as well. Obviously saw Pogba, Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Rojo return to the matchday squad, which was good to see. Notable absentees, however, Jones is still out with an injury after. Well, he was injured in the England game, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, they were trying to get him ready as well. They gave him 6 injections to get him ready.
For an international friendly. Jose was not happy about that at all.
What was the quote? He said that he wouldn't give a player 6 injections to get him ready for a Champions League final.
Yeah, exactly. But return to the squad, as I said, Pogba, Ibrahimovic, Marcus Rashford. In the opening moments for the game, though, Newcastle had a lot of positive passages of play. A mistake from Lindelof after slipping left Dwight Gale slot at home to make it 1-0 Arsenal. Newcastle 1-0 Arsenal, 1-0 Newcastle. Sorry. Newcastle followed this with some more impressive passages of play. They had a lot of clear-cut chances, but thanks to David De Gea, a lot of them didn't go in. But the first United goal, it was a brilliant bit of skill. So it was a great run by Pogba for the first goal. Obviously the bit of skill, the 2 touches to take it away from the defender. It was a lovely cross into Martial, who headed it into the back of the net. He was lucky to only be marked by DeAndre Yedlin. If it was a big centre-back for Newcastle, I doubt he would have got that header away, let alone the goal. United were then denied a penalty. Lots of shouts for that. Lukaku's shirt was pulled. Arguable decision, could have gone either way. Another great ball though from Ashley Young to Chris Smalling gave United the lead, making it 2-1 with another header. And then Pogba tapped it in to make it 3-1. It was a great tackle from Young on the counter-attack and a brilliant pass to Mata, who then passed it out to Lukaku, who crossed it into Rashford, and then obviously the header down to the path of Pogba to slot it home. It was a lovely assist, lovely bit of play to watch there. And then Lukaku cementing the victory for United, making it 4-1, smashing it into the roof of the net to secure a much-needed goal for him and the side. Great to see him back on the score sheet again. I think that could build up his confidence. And yeah, 4-1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think United and City now drawn for the number of times you've scored 4 or more goals this season?
Yes, but I think you said that Man City have scored 7-0.
It's either 6 or 7 goals.
Yeah.
3 times, whereas Man United haven't scored that many this season in one game. So, yeah, you can see City are clearly the more dominant team. But United are doing well this season, and it was good to see them back winning ways. Newcastle, I thought, didn't deserve to lose by 3 goals.
No, the scoreline was very flattering for United, I thought.
For sure.
I thought it didn't necessarily showcase how Newcastle... Because Newcastle had a decent game.
Yeah.
Like I said, in the opening passages, they had some great moments of play, but they just seemed to lose it when the 3rd goal went in, and ultimately that's what's cost United's opponents so far this season, is not being able to bounce back from the multiple goals that have been scored against them. We've seen it against the likes of Everton, Swansea as well, all the teams that we basically put 4 goals past.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of another team that scored 4 goals, Bournemouth beat Huddersfield by 4-0, and even had a man sent off in the second half. So it was a pretty dominant performance from Bournemouth, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, hat-trick from Callum Wilson. Great.
Good to see him back.
Yeah, good to see him back. Good to see him get the match ball, obviously with a hat-trick. Harry Arter scored a good goal as well. I thought that was a very well worked goal. But it's great to see Bournemouth playing such great football and playing so well so far this season. Mm-hmm. Where do they stand in the league so far, Lee?
Bournemouth are now 13th. Obviously, they've won the last 2 games, but
interesting.
It's quite a few teams on 13 points along with them. I think there's 4 teams on 13 points. Yeah. So it's quite. I
think we discussed it on a previous episode. It's basically the top 6, the bottom 3, and then all the teams in between can contend for either side. Basically, It's a really tight season so far. The season,
even Man City, who are 8 points ahead now, Man United are still keeping up with them generally, because this is the best start to a Premier League season any team has ever had.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think it's really harsh on United because we're obviously, we haven't been playing so well in the last couple of weeks, but when we have been playing well, we've been playing really well.
Almost any other Premier League season, you would be first by now,
But I mean, I think this is the moment right now in the season where teams need to gather momentum if you want to contend for the top 5, top 6, or if you want to contend for the league. Because United on paper, they're 8 points behind Man City, and I think there's 26 games left. A lot can happen in 26 games.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a pretty open, although I think most people are kind of resigned to the fact that Man City will probably win the league this year. But down the bottom, that's where it's getting interesting. Personally, I think the teams that are in the bottom 3 now, which I believe are Palace, West Ham and Swansea.
Yep.
I think those are the 3 that are going down. That's just my opinion.
That's fair. I do think...
Of the 3 of them, I think West Ham have got the best chance of staying up, even with David Moyes.
Well,
they've just got a better team.
I want to argue against that. I want to say Crystal Palace, because their team, for me, seems to have the most things ticking at the moment. Because I think
they got a point against Everton, didn't they?
Yeah,
this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. But I think that. I want to say it about West Ham as well, but those teams on paper are too good to go down at the moment, which is why it's so exciting to see the Premier League so open at the moment. It's because, it could prove horrendous for the clubs that would go down, the financial loss that they would gain from that, having to sell on the players that could eventually spiral them out of control. I mean, we've seen the countless clubs that have plummeted down the ranks since being relegated to the Premier League and have struggled to come back up, so to speak. We've got Portsmouth, you've got Charlton, Bolton, all those clubs that 10 years ago would be like a staple Premier League club, but now they're getting on in the lower leagues now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a topic for another time. We've actually mentioned that we're going to probably do a segment about that in this, in the near future. But back to Bournemouth, that's how we started the topic. I hope that's how we'll end it. It was a great win for them, and now they started off this season so abysmally and kind of out of character, because they have, since joining the Premier League for the first time a couple of years ago, been kind of they've cemented themselves as a mainstay in the Premier League, I would say.
Well,
they've been playing good football while doing it.
Personally, I was pipping Bournemouth to go down for the last couple of seasons, because until now there haven't been many standout players for them.
Well, most people were,
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, even when you look at this side now, there's not really many that stand out. I mean, Artur Boruc is a quality goalkeeper, and Callum Wilson's a great striker as well. But they've got Jermaine Defoe to come into the team as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably their worst bit of business. They've spent quite a bit of money on Jordan Ibe, Max Gradle, I think they brought in for quite a bit. Lewis Graben, they spent a lot of money on. Now he's playing in the Championship.
He's playing for Sunderland, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. On loan.
He's doing okay. He's in the top 5 goal scorers in the league at the moment.
But so they haven't necessarily invested it really well, but there's that real good spine of the team that have always did the same. And now they've brought in Begovic, who I know, they've been after for a while. Nathan Ake's gone back after being there on loan last season. I thought this season was the season they were going to kick off and probably get a top 10 finish, and it's been the opposite. But they are starting to do better now, and they're not one of the 3 worst teams in the league.
Disappointing result for Huddersfield though as well, considering where they are on the table at the moment. I think the 10th, am I right? Yeah, Huddersfield.
You're right.
And they've got Manchester City next. Not for long.
Yeah. I mean, I quite like Huddersfield because they're doing what they're doing, and Cardiff still did a double over them last season. Our left back scored a brace against them. Shout out Joe Bennett. But genuinely, I like the way Wagner's got them playing, and Aaron Moy's a great player. He's brought in some odd signings, Munaye and Schindler. They just kind of gelled in the team really well. So I like what they got going on, and him and Jurgen Klopp are like best friends. So
yeah,
you can't hate the guy. Right, I think it's time to bring Liam in for this next segment.
The big result of the weekend, should we say?
The match of the weekend. Where's your picture of Harry Kane?
Not yet. I'll bring it out soon, but no, it was a wicked result. Do you guys want to throw anything in before I...
The only thing I'll throw your way is the microphone.
Well, one thing I want to say is that the stats at the end of the game, Spurs dominated possession by 58%, but that leads us to the point of... Well, Spurs could argue that they had 2 really poor decisions against them by
Which
the referee that led
they
to the
did,
first
definitely.
goal. But I mean, at the end of the day, Arsenal still played better, and you've got this... Well, it's great to see the big stars in Arsenal coming out to perform, such as
Ozil again.
And Ozil, Sanchez and Lacazette starting together again, and it's like I say, it's no coincidence. You start then, you're going to get good results.
Yeah, I mean, we adopted the high press again, which we did against Manchester City, and obviously that we shot ourselves in the foot with that, but we executed it a lot better against Tottenham. I mean, they outpassed us by 150 passes, which shows that obviously we didn't have much possession of the ball as we'd usually like, but we were very clinical when we did attack. And yes, it wasn't a foul, and yes, the goal probably was offside, but obviously, like Guardiola said, I mean, when they played us, it wasn't a foul, it was offside, but we were better than them at the end of the day.
There was lots of stick coming Spurs' way after the game, though. People have now think to a couple of weeks back when people were coming out saying Spurs are great, they're playing such great football, they're going to go far. And now, a couple of weeks later, after a poor couple of results where they haven't been firing on all cylinders, so to speak, a lot of people are criticising them, saying stuff like, oh, they need to get trophies to cement themselves as one of the best teams. Like they can go so far and finish in the top 3 consecutively, but if they don't get trophies, then what does that prove?
Well, they didn't really rotate their team that much, did they? And now they've got a game against Dortmund as we're recording this tonight. So
that's going to be a fun game.
It'll be a really good game to watch for the neutral, but maybe I think if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be a bit
It's away as well. It's in Dortmund, you know. Yeah.
But if they win, then they qualify for the knockout stage.
Would you change anyone in that team, though, after the results they've had? or the result they
Musa
did have.
Sissoko shouldn't start.
But he hasn't been awful.
No.
I would agree that Moussa Dembele is a 10 times the player that Moussa Sissoko is.
Yeah, I don't get why Dembele's been on the bench in the last couple of games.
We all rate him pretty highly.
Yeah,
We've talked about that
needless
before.
to say.
But yeah, I mean, Spurs are one of my favourite Premier League teams. I don't have a Premier League team, you know, like I'm going around every single country picking out a team. But I enjoy watching them, and I think Pochettino's probably the best manager in the world at the moment. So I have no idea.
It's hard to argue
where that result came from. Nobody saw it coming.
But it just
Arsenal deserved it. Don't get me wrong, definitely.
It just makes me wonder how high Spurs could. Well, I had a debate going on in my head when I was writing up the notes for this week's show, because watching, like, say, clubs that are overperforming, so players that teams that don't really have any standout players, but they perform fantastically together. Use, for example, the Leicester City situation. Like, if you bring in, you've got to be careful with how you recruit, basically. You've got to be careful with who you bring in to suit that style of play and suit that team. Otherwise, it's just all going to come crumbling down.
Yeah.
So what makes me think is that how well would Spurs do if they took, say, a Galactico approach and brought in some big names for big money and started investing more? Or do you think Spurs' way of running things suits more the bringing players through the ranks?
I mean, it definitely suits their youth setup, but what you have is a problem of someone like Toby Alderweireld, who is probably the best centre back in the Premier League at the moment, if not the world. He's on 60 grand a week. Everywhere else he'd be on double, maybe triple that.
True, but I think Spurs have done a great job of turning either good or average players into great players, and I just wonder what would happen if they brought in a great player initially, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Heung-min Son, he was decent in the Bundesliga, but he was by no means one of their best players in the league.
And they didn't exactly fight off competition for him, did they?
No.
He was very much a one team.
You think of Dele Alli and Harry Kane as well, two players who came through the ranks under the Spurs' academy. And
well, even Christian Eriksen, how no one picked him up? He was Ajax captain at 19. I don't understand why nobody picked him up.
Rewind back to 2013, he was one of the biggest prospects in the world.
Yeah.
And he still is now. He's only like 24 or 25, but he's still got a lot of potential.
He hasn't reached his height, has he?
When we talk about the wave of players who would be nominated for the Ballon d'Or in the post Messi and post Ronaldo era, he should be one that would be definitely up there. If you look at
Neymar, De Bruyne, players
exactly.
like that. Probably
there's loads of great players coming through at the moment who are like 23 or 24, like world class talent at that age, and it's great to see.
Yeah. And I mean, it just means that whoever's scouting them, whoever's getting the best out of them needs to be nurturing other talent, because the better footballers that are coming through the Premier League, the better it is for everybody, because it's the most watched league in the world. It's the best league in the world.
But Liam, I had a question for you. You published an article on the Hockey Journals. The title was Consistently Inconsistent. Do you feel like you can attach that to Arsenal at the moment? Like, is it frustrating you how well you play so inconsistently?
It is. Can I talk to you about the sort of the climate, the club, and how we sort of got to take these matches, day by day basis, and sort of be happy with what we can get, especially with Arsene Wenger in charge. But to play the way we did against Spurs, just completely shut them off completely. I mean, it is frustrating why we can't replicate that against other teams, but I mean, I can't explain it to you. Someone in the club probably could, maybe, but as a fan, it is definitely frustrating, because if we play like that against any other team, we could definitely beat anyone. Well, maybe not Manchester City, but anyone else.
Yeah.
So yeah. But they talk about Spurs being like a project. Obviously, it is Pochettino's project. I mean, I don't know how many years they can say that, because they've got the Premier League's top goal scorer. Harry Kane probably will be again this season, and it's quite satisfying as an Arsenal fan to see a few months into the season, much like it's been for me supporting Arsenal, that they're not going to win the league. I think the record Pochettino has against the teams in the top 6.
Spurs definitely.
is
Spurs are not
appalling.
winning the league this year. I don't think.
No, they won't. So,
Well, they had their chance, and then Leicester did it. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
And they still came third that year.
Mm.
yeah.
You know.
So,
Oh yeah, they came third in a 2-horse race. There was
Yeah.
loads of stuff.
Great
going on
meme.
about that. But anyway, we're going to Sunday's results then. Only one game. Watford beating West Ham 2-0. Great result for Watford, who now sit in 8th place.
It was actually a great game. I was surprised. I was watching that kind of apprehensively. But we've talked about it before. Richarlison, our boy, got the second goal. Will Hughes got his first, with his first shot in Premier League history. He's a youngster. Been watching the Championship, you would have known he's been playing for Derby pretty much his entire career now. He's been playing for England under 21s and he's been stepping up. This season was his year. He was going to step up from last year, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, Monday night football. Monday night's game was Brighton v Stoke. 2-2 draw there. It's getting slightly worse for Stoke at the moment, isn't it? Because they're sat in 15th, but they're only 4 points off the relegation zone.
And where are Brighton?
Brighton, I believe.
Brighton and 9th.
Yeah, so
My God.
this 7th through to 11th is Burnley in 7th, Watford in 8th, Brighton in 9th, Huddersfield in 10th, and Newcastle in 11th. No one would have expected that at the beginning of the season.
It's crazy. The Premier League this year is so open, it's brilliant. But on to our next topic. Chris Coleman has now officially left Wales. We talked about it last week that it looked like he was going to. There was a lot of rumours being batted around, and he actually ended up resigning and joining Sunderland, who are currently bottom of the Championship. We actually did a poll on our Twitter of who we want to take over. We had 4 options. One of them was other, and that came second. And people were tweeting us, people like Oshin Roberts, who was Wales' assistant manager, he didn't resign. And a couple others, I mean, Craig Bellamy's been batted around, he threw his name into the hat, as did John Hartson.
There's been a lot of report. I think it was Rob Phillips who tweeted earlier saying that Craig Bellamy has made a quite passionate case to become Wales manager now.
On Monday Night Football.
Yeah, exactly.
Kit Simons came in bottom with no votes, so no one wants Kit Simons. God knows why.
He's resigned. From his position as the team coach.
Yeah, and we'd probably expect him to be appointed assistant manager of Sunderland at some point.
Probably.
That's the rumours at least.
But just to put into context, Chris Coleman, I think his annual salary as the Wales boss was around £300,000. I think
That's been reported.
That's been reported. Those are the rumours. By no means claiming it, but what is fact is that he signed a 2.5-year contract at Sunderland with £1 million a year. So it's a big step up in terms of a paycheck.
Exactly.
So I can see why he's done it. He's got a job on his hands. It's by no means an easy task. Jermaine Genius has rightfully pointed out that it's going to be a hard task. But
you can't tell me Sunderland didn't deserve to win that game. But the problem is that the Welsh FA haven't got a lot of money. Rob Phillips was talking about this on his show Saturday night, that there is by no means a kitty to go now and invest in a brand new manager. We probably don't have that much. And the honest facts is that the Welsh FA only brings in about 10 million a year.
Yeah, but rumours have it, or Wales Online's reported, that the Welsh FA were willing to chuck a lot of money in Chris Coleman's way, like making him by far the highest paid manager in Wales's history, which I'd be...
That's probably not saying too much.
No, that's not saying too much, but I just mean they still couldn't match the wage that Sunderland threw at him.
No, which is slightly concerning. But coming third in the poll, or second in terms of names, was Mark Hughes, still Stoke manager, probably by the skin of his nose at this point. But funnily enough, top of the poll came Tony Pulis, who has just been relieved of his duties from West Brom. West Brom. Funnily enough, though, West Brom, they're in an odd situation now. They need someone to help them, stay up, and the best available manager to do that is Tony Pulis. So it's funny at the moment, but I know I'm probably, even though he won our poll, in the minority, that I think Tony Pulis' style of football could help Wales. And I would love to see him as Wales
manager. I guess so, but I mean, Pulis's record in the last couple of months doesn't do him any favours. I mean,
yeah, but his team didn't either.
I've got a graphic up at the moment. His time at West Brom, January 2015, to May 2017. West Brom played 94 games, won 29 and lost 38. So the win ratio was 30.9%, which isn't bad for a team of that level. But I mean, this season, August 2017 to present, they've played 12, won 2 and lost 6, which means that they're on 16.7% in win ratio.
That's not staying up form, is it? The only the only thing that's keeping them out of the bottom 3 is the fact that there genuinely are much worse teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Than them in the league. This was the year where West Brom were meant to kick on. They finished highly last season, I think 9th. They invested a lot of money. They've been investing a little bit of money over the last couple of years. They brought in Rondon and whatever. But this year they brought in Krakowiak. They spent...
That was a good signing, but I mean, statistically, according to WhoScored.com, West Brom's best player has been Chris Brunt this year.
Oh, wow.
Which, when you look at the names in West Brom's team, you don't expect him to come up.
No, not at all. The thing is, they haven't got a bad squad, have they?
They haven't, by any stretch of the imagination. On paper, for me, they wouldn't be in the bottom 3.
No, not at all.
But
I just think that maybe bringing in too many players, finding it hard to gel them. I mean, they brought in, Krakowiak, who was Polish. They brought in Rondon, who is Venezuelan, and a few other odd nationalities that it probably hasn't helped him, considering Tony Pulis only speaks English. I was going to say Welsh. No, he definitely doesn't speak Welsh. He's from Newport. It's a bit of a dire situation. However, I still think that he would be the perfect person to take over.
I know you may find this hard to believe, but when Tony Pulis was at Stoke, and this is sincerely true, I used to think that someone else did the post-match interviews, because obviously when he's on the pitch he wears his hat and his glasses, and when he's in the post-match interview he takes them off, and I honestly thought it was a different person, he wasn't man enough to do the post-match interviews. I thought funny. That for a solid year until I realised.
It's odd. However, Pulis, even though his record isn't that good, and people would disagree with me.
Some more stats for anyway. They've scored 9 goals in 12 games so far this season. Sunderland have 22 in 17.
Oh, okay.
So they're just contrasting the two teams that Coleman's taken over and that Pulis is exiting. It's kind of weird to see. I mean, West Brom have a goal difference of -9 so far this season, and Huddersfield have the same goal difference, but they're in 10th place. So I'm not sure how... I don't think it's conceding goals that have really hindered West Brom in terms of statistics. It's just where the results have fallen, I guess, because, like I said, Huddersfield have got a goal difference of -9 and they're in 10th. West Brom are in 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And Huddersfield have 5 more points than them. So I'm not sure what's gone wrong there.
I suppose when you look at the table, they're not doing appallingly. You probably do about as people would expect West Brom to do.
Well, there's almost as many points between 10th and 20th as there is 1st and 2nd.
Oh, okay.
So Crystal Palace are on 5 points at 20th. Huddersfield are on 15. So there's only 10 points separating them. While in 1st and 2nd, you've got Man City on, I think it's 36 or 35 points, and then United are on 28 or something.
They're 8 points ahead, aren't they?
Oh, sorry, it's 26 and 24. So yeah, there's 8 points difference between 1st and 2nd, and then 10 points difference between 10th and 20th.
Yeah.
So that just shows how close the league is so far this year, other than Man City.
So yeah, in their past 5 games, they've had 2 1-0 losses, and it's obviously hard to forget that they scored 2 of their goals against Manchester City in that 3-2 loss.
Yeah, of course.
So,
I mean, I think that Pulis, with Sam Vokes up front, and then Woodburn and Bale, or Ramsey, or Hal Robson-Kanu, any of the two of those people behind him, in a Pulis system would work brilliantly. Maybe if we keep the 5 at the back, we can put Jazz Richards or Neil Taylor on the left, keep Ben Davis, James Chester and Ashley Williams as the 3, Gunter on the right. I know Pulis, it's a bit of a meme that he doesn't like full-backs. He'd rather play 2 centre-backs there.
Yeah.
But he'll work with Chris Gunter, I'm sure. And then you can just, turn Ramsey into the holding midfielder that he was meant to be.
Well, I mean, even if you bring Ethan Ampadu up to that role of just sitting in front of the defence but having that free roaming defensive role. I was there at the Panama game, coincidentally, Chris Coleman's last game in charge of Wales, which I'll hold close to my heart. But he had a really good game, Ethan Ampadu. He got a really good reception when he came off as well. And I think people want him to start. People want him to become Wales's rock in midfield, and I think he can do, because even physically he looks a lot like David Luiz and he plays a lot like David Luiz. So hopefully he can serve that role for Wales.
Okay, that's a good point. But is there anybody else that would take the job? Certainly nobody who's not at a club.
Well, I think the FAW are going to stick to tradition and employ a Welsh manager.
Mm-hmm.
It's just between two that are available at the moment, or potentially available, as Mark Hughes and Tony Pulis. I don't know if Mark Hughes is going to get sacked anytime soon, but obviously Pulis has been sacked, and I'll be surprised if the announcement isn't made by the end of today, even tomorrow.
Well, there's talk that the Welsh FA are going to take their time with this one.
I think there's definitely been a spanner in the works given Craig Bellamy's statement on Monday Night Football. He's not one to throw a spanner in the works, is he?
No, not at all. But it's funny because me and a friend of mine, Alex, we've got a bit of a conspiracy theory in that we think that at the end of the season, whether Cardiff go up or not, Neil Warnock is going to step down, and either Tony Pulis or Craig Bellamy will take charge.
Okay.
And maybe even Pulis with Bellamy as his assistant. So that would royally throw a spanner in the works to that plan, only because the way that Cardiff kind of set themselves up, it seems what they're doing, putting Bellamy head of the academy, getting him in the club. But we'll just wait and see, and I'm sure as soon as it gets announced, we'll tell you about it.
Flipping it, turning that question the other way around, Coleman to Sunderland, without going into too much depth, because I think we've got a fan question coming up later on about where we think Coleman could have gone. But it is a really good acquisition for Sunderland, I think. I mean, granted, Chris Coleman's track record in the last year of managing Wales doesn't do him any favours either, but I mean...
I actually don't think he's that good of a manager.
But can he save Sunderland?
Well, he could keep them up. I don't think he would take them to the Premier League, even next season, and even with a bit of money to spend, honestly, because, I mean, all right, so we tweeted this, and you probably would have seen it. It did quite well. It got a lot of retweets. Sunderland played Millwall on the weekend, and there were 4 goals in that game, all from goalkeeping errors. Now, as funny as that is, Millwall, they're not going to be doing anything anytime soon, are they? They're not going to be challenging for the Premier League. But we expect Sunderland to do it, and if anything, their goalkeeper was worse.
Yeah, it was a dire game, but I mean that was without Coleman in charge. I mean, Coleman's come out in the press now saying that any players who are uncommitted to the Sunderland team, he's just going to exile. He wants them out. So I think doing that at any club would be good, because as a manager, when you're in a struggling position, you want players to want to play for you.
Yeah.
So I think
he's also come out and said that Sunderland is the biggest club he's ever managed. So Fulham, sorry.
Fulham were in the Premier League when he managed them, weren't they? Yeah.
Real Sociedad, no. Oh well.
Well, Sunderland are a big club by no means. By all means, they're not exact. Well,
no, they're not a small club.
They're not a small. Just look at their stadium; it's significantly bigger than most Championship clubs, and they obviously have the money to throw Coleman's way. So they are a big club. They just need to get back up there, because I think
they've been flirting with relegation for so long that nobody ever thought would happen.
Going down, being relegated. Sorry, was probably one of the best things to happen to Sunderland.
You think?
Because they were just sat there at that level for so long, because they haven't really performed in the Premier League since probably the Darren Bent and Djibril Cissé days, where those two formed quite a formidable partnership. And even in the 2010-2011 season, obviously there was that infamous goal with the beach ball. Funny goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Sunderland have a history of recruiting decent strikers that come in and do a job. Just look at Kenwyne Jones, obviously Sunderland legend Kevin Phillips as well.
Kenwyne Jones retired this week as well.
Yeah,
just saying.
Wish Kenwyne Jones all the best. He's been a good player at all the clubs that he's.
Oh God, I loved him at Cardiff. I was so glad when he left.
Well, I enjoyed watching him when he was in the Premier League, but yeah, Sunderland have a history of recruiting decent strikers, and if Gaban can keep banging them in for Sunderland, there's no reason why you can't do a Dwight Gale.
Lewis Graben.
Lewis Graben, yeah. So there's no reason you can't do a Dwight Gale and bring them up and then continue to perform. But I mean, obviously you say he's on loan, but I think there's no way that Sunderland are going to get promoted this season. I think it's going to be very much a Neil Warnock situation where he comes in for a certain period, stabilises the club, and then does well in the next season. I think that's what the deal is going to be with Chris Coleman.
What I thought was funny about Sunderland fans was they were saying that, why not try and get Neil Warnock from Cardiff? And I was like, oh, bless them. That's so cute. Oh, they want him so badly.
Is Lee Catmull still at Sunderland?
He is.
I know.
Oh dear.
I know.
But I mean, I'll try and get the Sunderland starting 11 up now, or the team, because they haven't exiled so many of their players since being relegated. I mean, they still got, I think it's Lamina Kone or something like that, the centre back. He was decent for them last season, but I mean, just having a look now. So they've still got Jack Rodwell.
Yeah.
They've got Aidan McGeady as well, Lee Catmull, John O'Shea.
They haven't got a bad team. The problem is it's ageing. That's an aged
Paddy
team.
McNair, he was meant to be a big prospect for United.
How did that turn out for?
Not too well. Right. Anyway, should we move on?
We should. I think we should talk about the Price of Football report first, and then we'll get into the interview. So bear with us.
It's been a very interesting week for Welsh football, hasn't it?
No.
Anyway, we will go into the Price of Football report. So obviously the BBC released their Price of Football report, their annual report. Interesting findings really from this year's report. The most notable thing to come out of it is that young people don't want to go to football anymore.
Yeah, and well, we're young people and we like to talk about football, so why not talk about this? Their main findings were that 2/3 or 65% of young people say that the travel cost is the biggest obstacle for them attending matches. 3/4 of young fans say that they get their football news from social media, 24% from print. 3 in 5 fans aged 18 to 24 go to a sport app or mobile site to get their news, while 53 go to TV. 70% of young supporters agreed that football clubs do value them, but more. Sorry, I messed that up. 70% of supporters agreed that football fans were valued, but 53 of teenagers said that professional football was not run with them in mind. Apparently only 11% of young football fans go to at least one match a week.
Or was it a month?
No, the other stat is that 2 or 3 times a month.
Okay.
Is only 15%. So
that's a lot of statistics.
It's a lot of numbers to process.
Do you want to sum it up to me? What
So
does that mean?
The point is that young people feel like they're being alienated by big football.
They're underappreciated,
but just
essentially.
Just to throw out good news, almost 2/3 of price categories have been reduced or remained the same across England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland in the last year, which is good news. It's good to see prices going down.
I've talked about it enough on the show. I'm a Cardiff fan and I go every week. I'm a season ticket holder. I try and go to as many away games as I can. And away costs are ludicrous. And that's what stops me from going to away games. But at home, my season ticket last year was £99 because I was a student. Yeah, well, I'm a student now, but it went up because we moved to a different, better stand. So the problem is, and I mean, I can pay £20 if I wanted to go to an away match. I wouldn't mind doing that. But the problem is you go to somewhere like Sheffield Wednesday or Leeds and they're asking for 30 odd quid, and then to go from Cardiff to Sheffield or Cardiff to Leeds, it's a long journey. It's a long trip.
Well, price is the main barrier to people our age not going to football games. I mean, it's a really hard demographic because they're either studying at university in which they need to save money, or they're young
and they're working towards getting something.
Yeah, exactly. They're saving up. They've got plenty of savings. So.
I go to the football with my granddad You know, he's 70 odd now. I won't give him his actual age because he won't want me to. But he's not getting any younger, and you know, travelling is not easy for him. But if I had friends who wanted to go to an away match every week, I'll probably go with them and then go with him when I can. But he physically couldn't go all the way to Middlesbrough or to the games up north, and because we are so kind of secluded away in Wales, our closest game in the Championship is Bristol, which is still an hour and a half away. You know.
Well, there's some tough fixtures in the Championship, especially. I mean, I remember when Newcastle were in the Championship, they had to travel to Plymouth away. Like, that's a day trip, and that's not a fun day for anyone, especially if
you don't
the
want to go
result doesn't go
Plymouth
your way.
for a day trip. No,
But,
I mean, like, there's obviously up north the football teams. There's a lot more of them. Yeah.
And even in the Midlands and sort of South England as well, it's really Welsh fans that get the brunt of it, really.
Of course, but it's well known that when you get down to the 6th tier of English football, when it gets regionalised, the tier of their league is much harder, much better quality than the South tier. I was talking to James Thomas, who was on the show, episode 4, I believe, and he was saying that because he's a Hereford fan, they want to be put into the South tier because they think they can go up to the National League. But if they go up to the North League, they'll struggle.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Would you say there's been an increase in the amount of Championship games being televised as well? And if you think there is, do you think that affects it as well? The fact you can just go watch a game a lot easier now than you could before?
Well, the facts are there have been a lot more Championship games being televised.
Especially with Channel 5 and their weekly show at 9 o'clock on Saturdays, which is basically a match of the day for the Championship, and that's on national Freeview, so it's great to see it getting publicised.
True, but then me and my granddad at the start of the season, we were like, right, which games do we want to go to which are away that aren't too far? Well, the teams that are in London, Millwall, Brentford, Fulham, we'll go to those, and maybe like the one, Birmingham, Aston Villa, maybe Nottingham. We'll go into Nottingham on Sunday. So we wrote down those, and I was like, okay, so let's go to Fulham. We went to Fulham, and then it was the next was Reading, it was Birmingham. Or Birmingham's on the TV now, so we're not going to go to that.
Yeah.
Reading's on the TV. We're not going to go to that. With all due respect, as much as I love Cardiff City, I'm not going to go all the way when I can just watch the game at home on TV.
It's a very bittersweet situation because on the one hand, it's great that the lower leagues are getting airtime, but then there's no point going to games if they're just able to watch on TV.
Well, of course. And the thing is, I don't. My life may not necessarily revolve around football, although football's a big part of my life.
For a lot of people, it is though. I mean, they structure their whole lives and they take up all their weekends just going to see football games, and that's why I get why young people don't do that as much, because they've got other priorities in their life. You know
what, if you've got a desk job 9 till 5 and you can take Tuesdays half day so you can go to wherever you want in the country, then that's amazing for you.
Yeah.
You clearly haven't got a lot going on in your life, but who am I to judge? But the problem is,
I would be jealous of that if I had such a cushy life where I can take days off work to go watch football.
So would I.
I'm jealous of that.
But like I say, you probably haven't got a family or whatever to.
For people who've got coursework or they're studying or they're just getting into a career and they don't want to sort of milk their bosses of days off and stuff like that.
Or travelling. Travelling is such an important part. If you go in from Plymouth to Sunderland, that's a 10-hour car journey.
Yeah. That's
not something that you want to do. Some people just don't like travelling. But the point is, and I completely agree with the findings, and it's hard to disagree because they are facts, they're statistics, that young people are being priced out of football. And, it was hard for me when I had a part-time job to go to football and study and work at the same time. And one of them had to give, and it was my job.
Tying into what I say about people studying, people who study obviously work part-time jobs as well, which means that their weekends are also taken up, and football is on the weekends, sadly, most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, as a victim of working in retail myself, I miss a lot of football, and it does...
It gets in the way, doesn't it?
It gets in the way, yeah.
And there was those the proposals that were essentially all 3 o'clock kickoffs would essentially be 5:30 on a Saturday, but that's not the answer either, because that means attendances would just drop.
Yeah.
Saturday evenings people do things, and there is never. It's one of those things where you just need to cater for the mass and not for the few. That's the problem.
But in terms of bringing it back to a Premier League level, young adult fans bought 4% of all season tickets this year. Because
just 4%.
Just 4%, yeah. And in 2015, it was suggested that the average age of an adult supporter who had a season ticket or just went to games in general was 41. So that further proves the point that young people, it's hard for them to get into football.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like me and Liam and you don't support your local teams, it does take a whole weekend out just trying to go and see one of our favourite teams. And I'm having tried to get Man United tickets consistently in the last couple of months. I haven't had much luck.
No. But you're not going to, are you?
No. I mean, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, anyway, the problem is, and I'm glad this report's come out, what will come out of it, we don't know. If the Premier League do discuss it, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it on the show.
Even if clubs start because one thing that I found when researching for tickets in football, in the Wales games and in Premier League games as well, is that not a lot of clubs have like student prices. A lot of them are just adult, junior, concessions.
A lot of Premier League clubs
don't.
But Championship, in my experience, do.
Well, Wales national team didn't either.
Oh, that's interesting.
So even if it's just a 10% discount off ticket prices, that will still encourage students to go.
Well, the reason Cardiff is a massive student haven. For sure. There's 330,000 people who live in Cardiff. 40,000 of them are students, and just so happens that the months that are football season almost directly coincide with the academic year.
Yeah. So
it's perfect. So we can say, right, £99 student season tickets. If you're a Cardiff fan, you can come. You can watch a week of football, or weekly football is what I'm saying, and Bob's your uncle. But it doesn't always work out that way. People don't always want to watch that. It just seems to happen that way. Anyway, I'm sure we need to move on. Yesterday night, me and Ross were very, very lucky to sit down with, or over the phone, talk to Stuart Fleetwood, who used to play for Merthyr. If you haven't seen in the news, there's been a lot of problems. They're a bit of a club in crisis at the moment. 80% of their first team squad were, resigned or just left. Some offered to play for free. But we've got the full interview, and we're going to play that now for you. And about Merthyr. So what's the current situation as you understand it?
Well, basically, the only way I can obviously tell it is from obviously the players' point of view and what we've been told. So obviously, at the start of last week, there was obviously a couple of high-profile resignations, within the board and stuff like that. And obviously, a few rumours started to fly around. And then on Thursday, the club sort of rang the players and told the players that there wouldn't be any training session on the Thursday night, and that some of us were not surplus or requirements anymore, but they literally just didn't have the money to pay us, until further notice. So it was very out the blue. I spoke to Gavin Williams, the manager, who rang me and sort of was very apologetic, and I sort of couldn't really accept his apology because it wasn't his fault. He had nothing to do with it. So I was basically told to go and sort myself out and find another club.
Yeah, the club said that some of the players offered to play for free, but they declined that offer. Do you know who that might have been?
Yeah, well, I was one of them. I said to Gavin at the time, I said, I'll happily come and play Saturday for free, if it gives the club a chance of obviously getting a fixture on and, keeping the club sort of afloat for another week, if that was the case. And he basically said to me that it was already agreed that a youth team will go down to the game because they don't want to be unfair to the players because there'll be no travel. Obviously, we'd have to drive ourselves. And they didn't want to give any of the players false hope that they might be staying, or any of the fans, it's sort of an idea that the players might be staying when they wouldn't be. Obviously, at this level, being non-contract, obviously with the time of year, obviously being Christmas as well, for some of the players, it's a big majority of their income. So he wanted to try and give the players the opportunity to look for other clubs and get themselves sorted if they possibly could. And obviously, although it was a good gesture from a lot of the players to say they'd play, the club felt it would be too difficult to have everybody involved, obviously realising that they weren't getting paid.
Can you see where they're coming from?
Yeah, I can, and I think it was a goodwill gesture from the players, and a lot of us said that we would play. I think the majority said they would play, but the club had a firm stance on it and said this is exactly what's going to happen. We're going to be sending a youth team down. People need to be aware of what's happening at the club, and we just don't feel it right as a club to put you players in that position of having to play for free and spending your own money to get to the game and not being able to have an opportunity to go and find something else.
Mm-hmm. So how was your time at Merthyr? Are you disappointed with the way that it had to end?
Yeah, I'm gutted because obviously I went there with a lot of hope start of the season. The club seemed very well run from the outside looking in, and obviously even when I was there, there's never been any issue with wages and stuff like that, and even there's been for games that I've had to drive to, I've been given expenses without having to ask, and little things like that. Everything is run properly, and or so it seemed. On the player side of it, there's literally no complaints. We always knew that being a non-contract, obviously, player, that these things can happen, and there are money issues. But like I said, up until this week, there was literally nothing, that sort of sparked any rumour that they would go so drastically and change. So I'm gutted the way it left because I never really got to say goodbye to everyone properly. We managed to have a little bit of a lads' day out last weekend because we didn't have a game because we were out of the cup. So that was actually quite an apt situation, obviously, with what happened obviously the following week. So we managed to have a bit of a social together. But yeah, I'm more gutted that obviously I didn't get to say goodbye to some people, and it sort of ended quite abruptly.
Mm-hmm. But it surprised you?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously we heard the rumours, and obviously, but you never think it's just going to end as quickly. Gavin rang me, Thursday morning and sort of told me, basically that's it. The time's come to an end. They couldn't afford to pay my wages, and I need to go and sort myself out. To look after my family and myself financially more than anything. And he couldn't guarantee me when I'd be paid again and stuff like that. So. Yeah, big surprise. It was hard, and it was luckily, obviously, I managed to get something sorted pretty quickly myself. But I know other players are now in the position where they're not sure, where their next paycheck's coming from. So I'm gutted in that way, and I feel sorry for a lot of people involved in that. Mm-hmm.
So hopefully there'll be quite a few Merthyr fans listening to this now. What would your message to them be?
I just feel really sorry for him. Obviously, I know the situation that happened. Obviously, I think it's like 10 years ago now. Obviously, when the club ended up going into liquidation, and I know there's already been a Just Giving page set up by a fan group, and I think it's exceeded sort of nearly £10,000 already to clear a tax bill.
Have you thought about contributing to that yourself?
I have already. I think a number of the players have contributed, myself included, and we've actually, this is obviously it's not between us now, but we've actually got obviously our fines kitty, and we've all agreed that we're going to put that into it. It's a couple of £100, so we're actually going to put that into the page as well and contribute that way. And I think that just shows the level of commitment that the players actually had. Towards the club. There's a lot of local boys there, but even players like myself who have only been there, since July. We still feel that bond with the fans, that we don't want to let them down, even though the club has let everybody down, if you understand what I mean. So, yeah, we've actually all going to contribute to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, now you've moved on to pastures new. You've announced that you're signing for Redditch United due to international clearance. Obviously, what made you want to go there?
Well, basically, I ended up signing for Merthyr in the first place because I wanted to be closer to my family. I'm still in Gloucester, so I didn't want to be driving around, every night of the week and spending time away from my family. So I was looking for clubs that were closer to me, obviously, and I still want to be competitive. So obviously, being in the same league, we actually played them, obviously a couple of weeks ago. Obviously know who Darren Byfield is, and I speak to him, obviously after games and stuff like that, and I like the way they played football, and I literally just put in a call and said, this is the situation I'm in at the moment. Would there be anything you'd like to do? And he literally, fair play to him, said 100%. I'll get you in. Let's get it done. So it was literally a matter of 24 hours, and it was done. So I was very lucky in that state, in that phone call that I made it at that time, and Darren was great and said, yeah, we'll get it sorted, and it was done. So obviously we're just waiting for the clearance now. But I'd urge any of the other players, if they're obviously not sure about what they're going to do, to try and make some calls and see what else is about, because I just think there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going on at the club at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you got your coaching role over at Cheltenham. Do you see a player coaching role in the future?
Yeah, I think so. This is my first sort of year of getting into coaching properly. I've done my UEFA B, obviously, qualifications last season, and Cheltenham's a great fit for me. Starting off in the academy, I'm running the under-13s this year, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot, and I wanted to get my feet under the table somewhere and sort of learn, from the bottom up. So it's a lot of work, and it's it's a little bit different. Obviously, not being able to kick the ball with them and sort of tell them, but it's a different side and something that I really enjoy and something that I'd like to get involved with in the future. I do want to play as long as I possibly can. I'm still only 31, so I'm hoping I've got a few more years left in me. Obviously, if I look after myself like I do, and just see where it goes. But it's nice to have, just stay in football if I possibly can.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining me today, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Cheers.
So yeah, just to throw a bit of context into the situation, if you're not fully aware of what's been happening in the Merthyr Town camp, so in the space of the last week now, basically, it's been an ongoing story. Last Tuesday, Merthyr Town Vice Chair Anthony Hughes stood down as Vice Chair and as a board member. Obviously, if you don't know, Merthyr Town are a club that's run by the fans. I mean, if you go
by the supporters club.
Yeah, exactly. And if you go on their website, you can invest £10 a year, and you can label yourself as an owner of the club, which is a great thing to do if you're
it's
a
good
football
scheme.
club. Yeah,
it worked a real aviator.
And they have they take signs and stuff to games that say I own my club and stuff like that, and I think there's a great sense of community there.
Definitely.
But the following day, more board members resigned. Lee Rossiter, Jamie Mack and Robert Parker joined Hughes in stepping down from the board, although I think Jamie Mack is still in his role as football secretary. Anyway, on the Friday, a couple of days later, manager and former Wales international Gavin Williams releases a statement saying that 80% of the players have had to leave, like Bev said, but he is still in discussion with some of the players about staying, and that he's confident that he will be able to field a competitive team against... who did they play on Saturday?
It was...
Chesham United. Anyway, later that day, in fact, the Merthyr Town board issued another statement saying, with regret due to current financial situation at the club, the board have had to look at making significant savings both on and off the pitch. So, as you may have gathered from the interview, Stuart managed to clarify what that meant. You can see where they're coming from, basically, the club, because they didn't want to guarantee, or they didn't want players to play for free, because they know that they have expenditures, they need to get paid, so they'd rather them go off and try and find their own deals as soon as possible, so because obviously it was coming up to Christmas and stuff like that.
And as Stuart said in the interview, and by the way, thank you very much to Stuart, if you're listening, it was a fantastic interview. He offered to play for free, as did several other players, but Gavin Williams, the manager, said that he didn't want to, give players a false sense of hope that they were staying.
Exactly.
And you can kind of see where they're coming from there, although kind of no harm, no foul. Although they do have some first team players still on their books, an entire development team played against Chesham and they lost 13-1. Their goalkeeper was man of the match.
He's 15 years old.
Houston.
Ed Hewitson.
Yeah, who was 15 years old. So,
but there was an overwhelming amount of support flooding into Merthyr's way at the end of the game over Twitter. I mean, it was
if you follow us on Twitter as well, we keep up to date with everything. We're reporting the story.
Tab on Twitter. Loads of people were. Well, Wales Online reported on it as well. The
thing is, it's such a sad story, and not many people know much about Merthyr Town because they're in the 6th tier
I was about to
football.
ask where they are. And do you know where
I believe it's
sit in
sixth.
the league?
It's either
They're
sixth
in
or
the same
seventh
league
tier.
as Hereford, I believe.
Same league as Hereford. Stuart actually he's moved now to
Redditch United.
Redditch United. I believe the interview that we did with him was his first since joining his new club or announcing.
Yeah, we
him
managed to
joining his
catch
new
him on the phone 10 minutes after he made the announcement on Twitter, so that was a bit of exclusivity for you.
There we are. We're always on the front of knowledge on this podcast. But it's a dire situation. And
I mean, obviously they've launched the fundraiser now
Yeah,
to
that's got
cover
over
expenses. That's got upwards of 10.
over
grand,
10,000 grand has been.
The players, well, Stu also said that the players have put in a bit of money as well to show their appreciation, I think.
Yeah, and they've got a bit of a kitty put together. I think he said it was a fine kitty.
Yeah, it was a couple of £100 as well.
There's a few £100 they're going to put in there as well. So obviously the players are really passionate about the club. It's a sad situation.
But I mean, as of yesterday, the chairman Murik Price and former treasurer John Strand resigned from their posts at the board.
But they were being called to resign.
Yeah,
by
and
fans.
there's been more resignations since that as well.
Yeah.
And despite this, Gavin Williams is believed to be staying at the club, trying to persuade players to stay before signing on to new clubs. But obviously,
it's going to be hard.
It's a tough situation, but make sure that you follow the podcast Twitter, IOTP blog, and follow Merthyr Town's Twitter as well to keep up to date with all things Merthyr Town.
I think that's just at Merthyr Town FC.
Yeah, and there you can find the fundraiser as well if you want to donate to the cause. It would be great if you could.
And if you're in the local area on Saturday at 3 p.m, and I'm also calling Cardiff fans for this because we're playing on Sunday, so make sure you get down to Merthyr, get down, #PackThePark, I think is what they've been using. So just go, pay, you get to watch a game of football. It doesn't matter what level.
Heavily discounted prices. They
Of
just want to
course.
fill
the stadium. So please make sure you can do all you can to get that done.
And we wish Merthyr the best of luck in everything.
Absolutely. You've got our support, and we'll try and make it down at some point, I'm sure.
Anyway.
Right. On to a slightly more lighter topic. Who will win the 2018 World Cup?
Well, for me, it'll come as no surprise in saying that there was two main names that
Yeah, we've got an
I put forward.
IOTP blog on Twitter. Ross has already pimped that out. But the poll results were relatively interesting. France won it with 43% of the votes. Germany 36%, Brazil 14%, and other was 7%. So who do you think those 7% of others could be? Probably not
Spain.
England, maybe Spain.
Well, maybe England.
Italy?
Holland.
Wales?
Anyway,
Too soon.
so for me, there was two names, as I stated. It was either Germany or France for me.
Yeah, me too. That's why they were two there.
Yeah, there's no point in trying to hide that Germany have got a fantastic side with loads of depth. They've, in the qualifying games, in the 10 games that they qualified for the World Cup in, they scored 43 goals.
And in the Confederations Cup, they won it with their B team.
Yeah, exactly. And however, out of the other team, I think France are going to win it purely because, like I said, Germany have depth. France have depth in spades. I mean, you look at that starting 11 of the 11 that you would put out if all the players were fit. There is a world-class player in every single position in that France team, apart from maybe full-backs, but even Kurzawa is really good at a left-back.
I was going to say, Sidibe, I wouldn't say he's world-class.
He's not world-class either, but two centre-backs, Varane and Koscielny, Hugo Lloris in goal.
Yeah.
You've got Matuidi, Kante and Pogba potentially in midfield. And then on the wings you've got either Griezmann, Ousmane Dembele, Giroud. Benzema's obviously not in the French national team at the moment, but still. You've got, did I say Martial?
You didn't.
I didn't say Martial. You've got Giroud. I said
You said Giroud.
Lacazette.
Yeah. Mbappe. Dembele,
yeah.
It's unbelievable, but might as well just play 0-0-10.
And even Fekir, Naby Fekir
He's been
as
playing
well.
brilliantly this season. You know,
And
it's so hard. I don't want to be the French selectors because someone world class is going to miss out in that attacking lineup. You're not taking 10 forwards to the World Cup.
No, exactly. But I mean, even against Wales, they played well. I think it was a 2-0 loss to Wales, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, they beat Wales 2-0.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But
Sam Vokes on that got that brace.
But granted, Griezmann hasn't been himself. I mean, he's only got 2 league goals so far in La Liga, but he is still a quality player, and there's still players who can come in at striker. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Giroud's been fantastic for the French national team. You've got Mbappe who can play there, Martial who can play there, Lacazette who can play there, Fekir who can play there. I mean.
And Griezmann's form could always pick up. He came out today saying that he's still happy at Atletico and didn't regret not leaving this summer. I do think that next summer he will leave.
I do think he will leave in the summer.
I think his form can pick up. You know,
for sure. I mean, you look at that. Well, even the first team on paper, I think, is one of the best in the world, if not the best, because French national players at the moment are so on form.
In terms of like the 11, it's man for man. It's between France, Germany, and Belgium. But the problem Belgium have is they've just got no second team,
and they have very little. They gel. They don't seem to gel as much as they should.
Yeah, they've got so many world-class forwards, but not and 1 or 2 in midfield, but never anyone in like.
The one thing that they're missing,
defense.
I think, is probably a partner for Nainggolan, a proper decent partner. Because you got Dembele, you got Witsel, you got Fellaini.
How about Yuri Tielemans? Do you think you could do it for Belgium?
He could have a good tournament. He could do a Renato Sanchez, what he did at Euro 2016, and have a really good tournament. But I mean, for me, like you said, Belgium don't have any depth.
Yeah.
France's third team could probably beat England 4-0. Well, the second team at least.
Yeah.
Second team at least, third team, you know.
I think, let's just get it out there, France's second team and Germany's second team is at the moment better than England's first team.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So let's not kid ourselves. England aren't going to win the World Cup next year. But here's a good stat for you. Only 8 different countries have ever won the World Cup. That's Uruguay, Italy, Germany, Brazil, England, Argentina, France and Spain. But 5 different teams have won the last 5 World Cups.
Oh, Germany, Spain, Italy, Brazil, and France. Yeah.
So, could that be 6 in 6, or are we going to see France or Germany pick up another one?
Well, who would you pick as a dark horse then if it were to be a different team?
Belgium,
Definitely.
for me.
I think Sweden.
Really?
Sweden, yeah. Well, they got.
That's assuming Zlatan. I'm guessing.
No. Even without him, I think Sweden could. But well, I hate to reference other tournaments, but Iceland had a good 2016. I think Sweden could do the same.
I think Guidetti can fill the void of left
I think
by Zlatan.
Forsberg could become a really.
Well, Forsberg's fantastic.
This World Cup could make Forsberg and get him big move, because I think the last World Cup was the making of James Rodriguez. And I think this could be the making of plenty of midfield, or even Denmark. Denmark could be a dark horse team as well.
I mean, with Kenneth Sahor up front. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, he's been injured this
Anyway,
season.
who's your dark horse team?
Oh, I said Belgium.
Belgium. Okay. I wouldn't say the dark horses, though.
Oh, you're going to make me do this now.
I would, with Roberto Martinez as coach.
Yeah, Roberto Martinez makes them.
No disrespect, but...
Oh, full disrespect.
Who's your pick to win the World Cup League?
Someone who doesn't follow it much. I want to say France because, I mean, obviously, when was the last time they won it? Was it
1998?
Oh, obviously, the one before that. Obviously, they got to the Euro final, so they haven't had experience in that team of winning a tournament, but they got so close in the last one, you would expect them to go on and probably win this one. But I do think that could shoot them in the foot. Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, you named all those forwards, but Giroud's nearly always one of the first picks in that front three.
Would you play Lacazette up front with Giroud? Because at the moment, Wenger's not been doing that, and he's afraid to do it. I don't think they...
Depends on what sort of system they're trying to use.
They couldn't. Yeah. I mean, France must always play 2 strikers.
4-3-3 usually.
Well, they played 4-4-2 against England when they beat them, not in this group of international friendlies, the last one, over the summer. And they played Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele up front. Now, neither of them are strikers, they're both right wingers. but they absolutely destroyed England's defence.
And I haven't followed Germany enough to know, so I'll definitely be watching them.
Well, make sure you
They're
check out the
fantastic.
Confederations Cup stuff, because that was when Timo Werner,
Oh, I love Timo Werner.
Bellarabi, all sorts of...
They genuinely have, obviously this first team.
Goretzka had a fantastic
didn't he?
Confederations Cup.
And then they played the Confederations Cup, and they were like, that's the B team. That's the under 21s.
Because there's no Thomas Muller, there's no Toni Kroos, there's no Mesut Ozil.
There were so many players who were getting...
Neuer? Did Neuer play in that
No,
tournament? No Neuer.
I think you had Timo
No
Horn.
Boateng, Rudiger and Jonathan Tah, I think, was the main centre.
They had Hector at left back, who then made his kind of step up to be the German left back, and I think he is now.
Probably still is, yeah. It's between him and... I don't want left back.
I don't know.
Schmelzer.
Oh,
Schmelzer.
of course. I know he hasn't played for Germany in a while. I don't think he's getting on. But there's Dern, who's young.
I hate to go back to France, but look
Kimmich
at that.
as well. He had a fantastic...
Kimmich, yeah. Well, he'll be their right back, probably.
Yeah, he's the first team player.
But, I mean, that French midfield as well. I mean, I forgot to name Tolisso as well.
Oh, my God. And he's played so well this season after his move.
Pogba's doing bits at the moment when he does play. Combine him with probably Matuidi and N'Golo Kante. That's the perfect midfield. You've got Blaise Matuidi, who can hold the midfield, sit in front of the centre backs. You've got N'Golo Kante, who can perform the box to box role, and then you've got Paul Pogba, who's the creative hub of that French midfield.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of style of play, playing that three in midfield would be perfect.
Yeah. Right, how are we doing for time, Lee?
Just over an hour. So
Ooh, fantastic.
Not
We're
too bad.
doing well. Right, this is going to be a little bit of a quick divulgence, but I mean, the stories this year of Neymar after he's been moving and it have just been awful. It's been so every week. It's I wish I'd gone back. I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that. This is some actual facts, though. He cried in his press conference whilst playing for Brazil, and that was because journalists kept asking him questions about his future. Now I've got to feel sorry for him, but then a story came out on 90min.com, and they said that he cried when he left Barca for PSG. And because he wanted to go back immediately. It's like, how often does this guy cry? Is he watching The Notebook every week? Like, it's crazy. And Eric Cantona chimed in on this. He said, when you're 25 years old and you've played for Barcelona, what are you doing going to play in League One? I mean,
I get that.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's a definite good point.
I guess for a player who wants to move on from Barcelona, there's not many options in terms of moving upwards.
Yeah.
But I mean, PSG have got that project going at the moment. I think he wants to be the person who spearheads that project and become
he wants to win a Ballon d'Or. That's his main goal, I guess. But I'm going to lay down the gauntlet here and I say, unless there's genuine facts, because I feel like we talk about it too much on the show, we're not talking about Neymar at PSG anymore. No more in the transfer rumours. It just doesn't happen.
Okay.
And we'll probably go for about 2 weeks. And then we'll get more.
Then we'll need those spicy views.
Clickbait. Neymar to PSG, to PSV, I guess, confirmed 100%. Anyway, shall we move on? Oh, this is definitely self-indulgence. Last week when we did our Serie A roundup, we saw the little minnows in Serie A, Benevento, they hadn't won a game, so we vowed that we'd talk about them every week until they did. And I'm keeping that promise.
Well, it looks like we'll be talking about them next week then.
Yeah, next week we'll probably mention them too. They played at home for their first game after the international break against Sassuolo, who they're not a bad team.
No.
They qualified for the Europa League not too long ago.
Dominique
Berardi. That's the player, I know.
Yeah.
And
is it Consuelo, the goalkeeper, as well?
Yes, I want to say so.
Yeah.
They took the lead, believe it or not. They scored a goal, but in typical Benevento fashion, one of their players, whose name I don't even want to pronounce, he got sent off, and he let the team down, unfortunately.
Let your boys down.
He let the boys down because Sassuolo, then they went and equalised. Then they missed a penalty, and I thought it's going to be Benevento's day. They're going to get their first point because they haven't even got a single point on the board this season. But no, in the 94th minute of injury time, or just a 4th minute of injury time. In the 94th minute, for sure.
They would probably get to score a goal.
Someone died whilst they were in the 94th minute of the game, is what I wanted to say. They absolutely bottled it, and Benevento conceded. Sassuolo walked away 2-1 winners, and I'm so disappointed because I had the notifications on my phone, and I was talking to a friend of mine at the time, and it went off that they missed a penalty, and I went, yes! And he was like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, Sassuolo missed a penalty. And I'm like, what, you've got a bet on? I was like, no, it's Benevento. It's more important than a bet.
That could be a good idea. Get Benevento in the old Accas every week.
That's a terrible idea.
Bet against Benevento.
Oh, okay.
And it's a win-win.
No, in my luck, for sure, they batter Juventus 8-0.
Yeah, but is that a bad thing?
Yeah, because then I'd probably lose about 12 grand.
Oh well.
Oh well. Here's a quick game for you before we go into... I know Liam's got a quick game that he wants to do.
I do indeed, because obviously we love stats so much on this podcast. I thought I'd throw a quick mathematical equation, obviously related to football, to the two here.
Quick maths.
Quickly, yes, indeed. Big man Shaq.
1 + 1 is 2.
If you've got the Premier League table up, can you please get it?
I don't have
Get
it.
it off.
Get it off. Okay.
Get it off.
Okay.
Okay, don't want to see it. Sick of seeing it. I haven't had Wi-Fi, so I'm meant to be the stats guy. I've been sitting at the table the whole podcast, so I don't want to see it anymore. Right, my question for you today, or sort of equation.
I should not look at your screen, should I? Or should I?
No, it's fine. And it is, okay, so the number of times Arsene Wenger said, as we know he does, in the post-match interview against Tottenham, and the interview was roughly 3 minutes.
Alright.
So try and gauge a rough figure in your head. Okay.
Does count as
Yeah, I think I've done. Yeah, a lot of research went into this. Minus the number of points Arsenal currently have in the league table.
Oh,
maybe
I don't even
remember.
know.
See, that's what I thought
no.
would be good. And then that should equal the total number of clear-cut chances Tottenham had in the Arsenal match.
Oh,
How did you get these stats?
I'm gonna say.
How many points do you think we have in the table at the moment, Arsenal?
22, 24.
My guess was 21.
Yeah, with 22.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So how many times did he say like 83?
it lasted about 3 minutes.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I've seen the stats for how many times.
I'm gonna say.
Are we gonna guess the final number?
That should help you.
I'm gonna say that you have absolutely snaked us here, and that Arsene Wenger said 21 times, and Spurs had no clear chances.
Yes. Sorry, Spurs fans, but it had to go in. No clear-cut chances.
There we are.
Yeah, sorry, but
I was gonna guess
that.
2.
I like
that'd be
that.
some fun for you.
You know what? That was a great segment. I hope we see more
I'll
of
have
that.
photos with these PowerPoints. You couldn't see it, but there was a PowerPoint slide. I'll throw some photos on
It was
next
perfect.
time, I think.
Okay, here's a quick game for you guys then. This is a name. You guys need to guess who the name that is put in this. This is a Guardian headline. Tactical errors leave weakened blank at the end of an era.
End of an era.
Is it a place or a person?
Person.
Pulis.
Oh,
Liam?
that was. Oh,
Benevento.
as a person, they've had to change. I don't know.
Robert Mugabe.
How would we have got that?
I don't know.
It's the guy.
I thought that was funny.
What did you expect?
It was former Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe. It is former, by the way, because it just popped up on my phone now. He's resigned whilst we were on the podcast. How about that? You can't get more current than that. Fan cues. I like doing this. First question is from Harry Trent on Twitter. What do you expect from the IOTB YouTube channel? That's a very good question.
Tons of exclusive content.
Yeah.
Hopefully bloopers of what we record in the podcast. Liam and our mate Donald, who's behind the camera.
Oh, come on. You see that?
They went out this morning to try and record a new intro for us, a live action intro. While me and Bev we tried to set up the Graham Fowler interview.
Yeah.
That should be coming soon. You'll see an outtakes video, exclusive video on that.
Yeah, we should have an interlude video in the future.
Yeah.
So
we're
halfway through the podcast.
We're trying to make the video podcast a real thing.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy the video version of the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and hate to pimp us out, but leave a like. Doing that usual
Share
YouTube
it
stuff
with
now.
8 friends, and you can win. I don't know, nothing. You can win nothing.
But yeah, it's tons of exclusive content. I mean, we've got a couple of interesting ideas in the pipeline. We'll announce those as soon as everything's set in stone.
Of course, you'll hear about it on the podcast as well. So make sure that you do subscribe. And we'll probably have them in the middle of the podcast as well as a bit.
Yeah.
But we will have, and I'm looking forward to filming this at some point. A really special TV studio bit. I won't say too much. I don't want to give it away.
But keep an eye on the YouTube.
But keep an eye on the YouTube channel for it. I'm really looking forward to filming that. Anyway.
Oh, sorry, and just quickly throw in, we'll probably have a second camera angle as well, so you're not sort of a floating passenger in the room anymore. We will upgrade you, I promise.
Probably give a bit more eye contact with the second camera.
Yeah.
Right, this is a question from David_Reynolds7 on Twitter. Could Coleman have gone anywhere else? Now this is funny because I thought that he could have gone to West Brom if he'd waited just another day.
I was going to say the same. I was going to say West Brom or Everton. Coincidentally, the two clubs that are looking for managers at the moment, and coincidentally, Chris Coleman's publicly stated his desire to manage a club at European level.
Yeah.
This was why the decision to manage Sunderland came as such a surprise for me, because I thought Chris Coleman was aspiring for better. I mean, if he wants to manage a club in the Champions League, with all due respect, he needs to sort of step his game up, because in terms of managers at clubs, it's a really competitive market at the moment. Clubs want to bring in the best managers, and if you want to manage the best clubs, you have to be one of the best managers.
He even said, didn't he, that he wanted to even go abroad if that meant he got a team in the Champions League. So I thought that was really interesting that he'd end up at Sunderland of all places.
No, he could have gone even to Holland, maybe manage one of the clubs out there. If he wants to bring it up to
shape up
European
his
level.
Dutch accent, just like
You won't do Steve McLaren.
Please. I would pay money to see him do that. That would be fantastic. Right, any other thoughts on that?
No, I just think he could have done better in Premier League level, Everton or West Brom, and then top 6. Even like I'm thinking of French clubs that he could have gone to. Maybe Nice. I know they're probably not looking for a manager at the moment.
Their manager at the moment is doing fantastic.
And I'm just looking spitballing clubs.
Yeah. Right. This question has a bit of context. I'll read this to you. This is a tweet from at FSF_faircop. I'm not really sure what that is, but it said an eagle-eyed viewer on Match of the Day is offended at the sight of a supporter making a masturbatory gesture at an opposing player taking a corner. He writes the club to complain. The fan is contacted by the club, the one who made said gesture, and is asked to explain his actions and is expected to get a ban. So at James Thomas here tweeted us saying, as we retweeted it, saying, do you guys think rude gestures and rude language should be minimised at football, or are they expected? Now, without going into a long debate about lad culture or anything like that, grow up. That's all I'm going to say on it.
I mean, it's a catch-22 gesture, because at the end of the day, you want more young people getting involved with football. You want them to be in a safe and comfortable environment when watching football.
That's what the family ends for.
I was about to say, you basically have stands associated with fans who sort of, you maybe expect these gestures from.
It's the thing,
I mean,
no kid should have to listen to some of the chants that are thrown at players. I mean, that's a part of culture, of football culture.
Yeah.
You can ban fans for chanting something, but I mean, as part of the game, you don't want to ruin the atmosphere. I'm not saying that making a masturbatory gesture at someone taking a corner is part of the game. Granted, that's quite offensive, I guess.
I mean, if you did it on the street, then it's a crime. But
Without seeming too harsh, I think it's the real world.
Yeah,
you're going to come across worse things.
I think it's petty from the fan who actually.
Who sees that on Match of the Day and goes, you know what, I'm going to write to that club.
That's the problem. Like to sort of put a sort of situation to you. Like if your child's there watching it, the chances are he's not even going to see that. But as soon as you then
Imagine the
raise...
day's on at 10 o'clock.
Well, exactly. But even if he doesn't see it, you then raising an issue about it is probably going to make him, increase the chance of him seeing it, as opposed if you just ignored it.
It's the Streisand effect.
Kids are not going to know what if it means if you don't tell them what it means.
Exactly.
If they start doing it, then just tell them to stop.
And if they ask questions, then you explain to them and you say that that's not the right thing to do. Be a parent.
Welcome to the In Off the Parent podcast.
In Off the Parent. But I mean, coming from my perspective, I sat in the family stand at the Cardiff City Stadium for 6 years, and probably longer, and only just this season moved to the Ninian stand, which is
it's a good stand.
It's a nice stand to sit in. The reason me and my granddad left that stand was, well, one, because I got too old, I couldn't stay in there anymore, and two, was because we were sick of all the fans going, "Come on, City!" It was really annoying. There was this girl who used to sit in front of us, and she was maybe 6, and she's had a season ticket as long as I've known her. She was really young, because her grandparents got really friendly with mine, and every time Aaron Gunnarsson touched the ball, she'd scream, "Come on, Aaron!" And it was frustrating.
I've had the pleasure of sitting in the family stand for the Wales-Bosnia game a couple of years back. It's so tame.
It is tame.
It's so
and then
tame.
you move into I moved to the Ninian, and the first time the referee did something, and I'll censor myself, this guy stood up and just threw all kinds of gestures, just like the one that we're debating now, and even made some disgusting remarks about the referee's mother. Now, I'm sure she's a lovely woman, but it was different, and I couldn't help but laugh about the difference.
Well, going along the same thing, I was sat in the same stand for the Wales-Panama game last Tuesday, and one thing that wasn't necessarily offensive but more funny, there was, I think it was the Panama number 9 or number 11 that Wales fans weren't best pleased with, because he was either thought he was diving or committing fouls, but the Wales fans didn't like him basically. And then there was one time that he went down injured, and the guy behind me was just like, "Oh, leave him, man! Don't kick the ball out. Just let him die." And I was just like, "Okay, you wouldn't see that in the family stand, but that's why the family stands are there. They're meant to be the safe zones."
Those crowd interactions are actually part of the game. My granddad tells me the story about this guy who he used to shout, and he had a season ticket next to him, and he would always shout, "Worry him! Worry him!" Every time a player got close to another player on the ball, he'd say, "Worry him! Worry him!" And people getting so sick of it that someone at the back went, "Yeah, just tell him his mum's ill." And I fully beat myself out. When I was like 4 going to Cardiff matches, I used to think that the fans would sing "The referee's a whacker," so that's what I would say too. Anyway, that's not the football funny this week.
Why don't we get on to the football funny then?
We've got an honourable mention this week, believe it or not.
Mamba number 5.
Yeah, and this was funny. I told the lads about this. We don't normally share this before, but because it's an honourable mention, it doesn't really matter. Fleet United, they've got a player whose last name's Mambo, and they wanted the fans for him to have the number 5 jersey.
It's a great story.
It's so non-league football, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so that he would line up with the infamously awful song from Shrek. Unfortunately, the club captain had the number 5 jersey and didn't want to give it away. What a party pooper. So instead, they created a one-off Mambo number 5 jersey and raising money for charity by auctioning it on eBay. So it's actually a great story.
It's a great story, but it's not the football funny.
It is not the football funny. This video was circling a lot on social media, so I hope you guys haven't seen it. But it just had to be mentioned, and the story around it is even better. The Qatar under-19 team versus the Iraq.
I don't think I've seen this.
Have you not?
No.
Versus Iraq under-19s. They were in a playoff final to decide who goes to the Asian under-19 championship next summer. The Qatar goalkeeper, Shahab Madou, saved a penalty, after obviously it went to extra time, but they were still drawing, to send his country through. So he thought. The referee ordered the penalty to be retaken after the goalkeeper stepped off his line before the penalty was taken. He was yellow carded for that, and the resulting argument led to him getting a second yellow card, so he was sent off.
Oh my God.
He went down the touchline, a dejected figure. He was crying. It was awful. But
Oh, don't tell me it gets worse.
Qatar's captain stepped in. Now, I mean, I'm gonna have to guess here, but imagine that they're, regulation goals. This guy is probably 5'8". He's not a goalkeeper. And in the most awkward of fashions, the other guy, the Iraq player, stepped up, put the penalty square in the corner, and the guy just slide tackled the ball away and saved it and sent Qatar into the top.
That's beautiful.
I'll find the video for you guys later. It is unbelievable. I mean, no goalkeeper would ever save a penalty like that. He genuinely slide tackled the ball out.
David De Gea would.
Okay, right.
Well.
And now Qatar are going to the Asian Under-19 Championships next summer as a result. And their goalkeeper ran straight from the tunnel to celebrate with his friends, and he was
That's incredible.
It was a great thing.
Yelling himself a PSG call-up.
Yeah, what they can is if they park the bus in the Qatar League, park the Lambo.
Right, anyway, thank you very much for watching this episode of the In Off the Post podcast. I've been your host, Daniel Bevan. Follow me on Twitter at DanBevJourno.
I've been Ross Dawson. Follow me at rdawes_.
I've been Liam Thomas. Follow me on Twitter at LiamIsAJourno.
Make sure to follow the podcast at IOTP blog.
And follow our producer, Donald.
Yes. He only has a hand.
But what a hand it is.
Apologies for the old rusty setup this week. We hope to be getting back to normal next week.
Absolutely. Follow us on SoundCloud, subscribe on YouTube.
Big thank you to Stuart Fleetwood again for talking to us.
Yep, and stay tuned for the Graham Fowler interview on Friday.
Thank you.
Nice
Ta-ra.
one.